Because this is a global event crossing many different time zones, that means for some of our speakers, and of course many of you in the audience, that it's the middle of the night. Our next speaker, Dr. Finlay Sutton, is standing by in the west of the United Kingdom, where it is very early in the morning, unsociably early, in fact. But those of you who've been lucky enough to hear him speak before will know that he has boundless energy for his subject, regardless of the time of day. Dr. Jeff Cook, who's in Sydney, joins us now to introduce Dr. Finlay Sutton.
My name's Jeff Cook. I'm a prosthodontist based in Sydney. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Finlay Sutton. Finlay is a prosthodontist based in Garstang, northwest England, and limits his clinical work to removable prosthodontics. Together with his highly skilled dental technician, Rowan Garstang, working in the room next door, they provide superb, functioning and lifelike dentures, which can profoundly improve their patients' quality of life. He loves teaching dental professionals how to provide state-of-the-art dentures, aiming to ignite enthusiasm for removable prosthodontics. Dr. Sutton qualified in 1993 at Sheffield University, did 6 years in general practice, during which time he found prosthodontics unpredictable and as a result very stressful, and we can all relate to that. This led him to leave general practice and gain a further 7 years formal training in prosthodontics and restorative dentistry at Manchester and Liverpool dental hospitals prior to establishing his specialist referral practice in 2007. Dr. Sutton concentrates his professional life with 3 areas of removable prosthodontics, namely clinical provision for patients, training, lecturing, mentorship for dental professionals, and thirdly, research and development. So it's my pleasure now to hand over to Dr. Sutton for his lecture on prosthodontics facing the professional challenge. Take it away, Finlay.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jeff, for that lovely, kind introduction there. It's great to be here with you. So I'm really excited about presenting today to you, and this is my first of 3 talks, and this particular one is on partial dentures. And I just want to pay tribute to someone that I work with really closely and have done for well over 20 years, and that's Rowan, my dental technician. And we've focused on removable prosthodontics and dentures specifically for the past 10 years. But I want to let you into a secret, really. I used to really hate making dentures. I just found them so unpredictable, and patients coming back and saying they really didn't like them. And this culminated in 1998 when I was treating a patient in Edinburgh. I used to work in Edinburgh, and this lady was called Mrs. Kennedy, and she had a Kennedy class 3 bounded saddle where she got some missing teeth there, and she had this really quite an interesting little denture. It was a sectional denture which was in 2 parts to it. So it was a little metal chrome section that went in, and then an acrylic section that went over the top of that, and had a bolt and lock in it. And Mrs. Kennedy persuaded me to remake this denture for her, and so I went through the process of making that and fitted it. And when she looked in the mirror, she was horrified because I'd fitted this denture with this bolt here that went and through that premolar just there. So when she smiled and looked in the mirror, she saw this horrible bolt, this metal bolt sticking down that tooth. She said, "Call yourself a dentist? What are you doing?" So this was actually the final straw for me in terms of my general practice. And then I knew I just had to either stop doing dentistry or learn more about it. So that was the last thing. And I went and did a master's in prosthodontics and started to enjoy doing them. But you know what? I still have days where I hate them. And just like any aspect of dentistry, you know, if I take my eye off the ball, problems happen. If I've not managed the patient's expectations and told them what it's going to be like, then there's going to be issues. If I've not communicated with the technician properly, then there can be real problems. But, you know, I absolutely love them too, because when I get them right, it can really change a patient's life. And they are fantastic restorations. And I think they are still really needed. Because, you know, not everyone can have implants. Not everyone can afford dental implants. And also not everyone is doesn't really want them, and maybe for health reasons. So I'm going to share with you this case, and I'm going to take you through this case. This is Angela, and she fits into that category. She didn't want to have dental implants because of having type 1 diabetes. So I'm going to go through her treatment process. Now, Angela's concerns were that she was terrified about losing her teeth, and she was really worried about implant failure because she had type 1 diabetes. Now, her dentist had referred her to me, and they'd had this discussion about dental implants and fixed bridge work for failing posterior teeth. And in that discussion, Angela decided, I don't want to go down the implant route. And I do find I get a lot of patients referred to me for this type of thing. So what I like to gather is a wish list for the patient. And Angela wanted perfect white teeth, clean white teeth, no one knowing that she might have dentures, and also no discomfort wearing dentures. Let's have a look in her mouth now. So she's got these missing, she's got these posterior teeth that have got deep periodontal pockets. The anterior teeth, the upper and lower 12 upper canine to canine, lower canine to canine, a really good condition, maybe a little bit of recession up here. But if we look at the back, she's got deep pockets on these posterior teeth here, and failing bridges. She just lost a lower tooth at the back here too, and she's got bridge work on this upper left hand side. Let's have a look at the x-ray picture now. So we've got these upper teeth here where we've got massive bone loss around those teeth there. She's lost another one just down at the back here, and she's got slightly reduced attachment levels on the upper and lower left-hand side there. So running through this, we've got hopeless prognosis teeth on this upper right-hand side here, and we've got some pontics. We've got dubious prognosis on these teeth here, which are bridge abutments, and we've got good prognosis on these anterior teeth with, you know, no pocketing at all around them. So let's move on to the treatment plan. And the treatment sequence really was to extract the unsavable teeth and section the bridges and fit Mark 1 dentures, immediate dentures. Number 2, when we've got the stable holding pattern of the immediates, provide new crowns on the bridge abutments. And then thirdly, provide Mark 2 dentures, which is metal-based ones. And they are, my final dentures are always metal-based dentures. So this is the whole sequence of treatment. Now, I don't want you to try and read this slide, but it just shows you how I sequence the treatment for a patient, and how I calculate how much the treatment is going to cost, how long the treatment is going to take. And this is all on my website. If you want to go there, you can just go to my website at finlaysutton.co.uk. If you click on the resources section there and scroll down, you'll actually find different letters that I write to patients there. So if you're looking to have a look at some of those letters in the treatment planning cards, please just feel free to have a look at that. Also, what I like to do with my patients is to really inform them exactly what the problem is, and in the form of a letter. So what the problem is, and also what we're suggesting doing as far as the treatment's concerned, and also doing what to expect in terms of the outcome of the treatment. And I like to include examples of previous dentures that I've done, and also a example of of the design that I propose for the patient too. You know, it's all about managing their expectations. I want to really under-promise and over-deliver on every patient so I get success. So let's move forward now to the immediate dentures for Angela here. So now with immediate dentures, I like to have them fully collated around the natural teeth there. So we've got the missing teeth here, this freehand saddle here, and also with all of my dentures, I like to have just 2 clasps per denture. And these are 0.9 millimeter stainless steel clasps. There. This is the lower denture here. So we've got a freehand saddle, nicely extended, just halfway up the retromolar pad. And we've got the missing teeth replaced with a this 0.9 millimeter stainless steel wire. So I take some primary impressions first to get some primary casts, and from that I like to make special trays which have got these little holes riveted in to help hold the alginate impression material that I'm going to be using for my working model here. And I do like to, when I'm doing immediate dentures, if possible, to use a special tray, a custom tray, if we've got saddle areas that we need to capture and mold. So this is my approach to doing the working impression. I like to use green stick compound. I love that for molding the areas where we've got missing teeth, and you know, really get that cheek border molded so that we've got a lovely reflection recorded. I've put in here the alginate adhesive into the tray there, and then I do a working impression. Now this is the tray loaded with alginate. This is dense ply blueprint alginate, and I've loaded that with alginate, and I've put a glaze over that with water. I then take this to the mouth and take the impression there, and border molding really carefully this area just round here where we're going to have an edentulous part. And I wanted to capture all of the areas where we've got the missing teeth there. So for the lower, I use green stick in the edentulous area, and just as a little stop, border molding that lingual section just here. So we've got a nice functionally border molded depth of the sulcus there. And then I do an impression in alginate around there and getting the patient to move their tongue, and also border molding whilst I'm doing that. Now this is a little video of me actually doing the impression. I'll just show you. I've got the sound turned off. I'm just going to talk you through it. So first of all, what I do is I take some alginate and I rub it onto the occlusal surfaces of the teeth like that. And then I rotate the impression into the mouth and sit it down right onto my green stick stops. Push that firmly down. You can see Claire's helping to hold the lips out of the way. Push that down. And then I get the patient just to really stick their tongue out and lick their upper lip. Really go for it. And then once they've done that, I hold it down with my fingers and do some border molding with my hands around that impression. there. So this gives us a working cast. This is the working cast for the immediate denture. So Rowan carefully removes the pontics and removes the teeth that we're going to extract, just sections those off the model here. I like to extend my immediate denture to the same extension that I'm going to do for my definitive working final denture too, just with a little post stamp on that model there on the cast. So here's a fully collared 2 clasps per denture design. And here we have the lower working cast for the immediate denture. Rowan's taken the teeth off that. And we've got a lovely acrylic denture there ready, so fully extended over the retromolar pad and collared around the teeth. So now, a little aside here, when I'm doing my partial dentures, whenever I have a free end saddle area, I treat that free end saddle area just like a full denture. So I'm getting maximum extension, maximum support, maximum stability from that side of the mouth. This is a denture that I've recently made, which has got, the patient had 2 beautiful molars here that had no pocketing, and they're just great teeth. It's really strange how people end up with these weird tooth combinations like this. But so we made this denture with this fully extended, and this worked beautifully with these ring rests on that denture. Let's move back to Angela here. So now what Rowan often makes me when I'm doing immediate dentures is that these are made of Duralay. These are preparation guides, which I can then fit in the mouth, and then I can then section the bridge to actually fit the denture, and it helps give me to produce nice parallel guiding surfaces ready for the partial denture. And this is how they work in the mouth. This is a little video here that I've done. So we put them over the teeth, so that's got the preparation guide in place, and then I section through the pontic, and that guide keeps me parallel, and they're terrific. I love them. They're great for doing partial denture preparations as well, for getting parallel guide surfaces around the mouth for chromes. So here I've sectioned that bridge, and now I'm going to get the immediate denture to fit properly. This is a different immediate denture, but I want to just show you how I make dentures fit properly, because they very rarely fit properly out of the box. You know, when I first qualified, I thought you should be able to get them straight from the lab, fit them, and they should fit perfectly. But this is a technique that I use for adjusting them when I'm fitting them, is I never adjust the collet here, or very, very rarely will adjust that. I'll adjust above the collet where the denture touches the tooth. And the great thing about doing this is it prevents me from making a gap between the tooth and the denture. So I'll just show you that with Angela now. So I use occlude spray and spray that onto the fitting surface of the denture where it's going to fit against the teeth. I then take this to the mouth, and this is looking from my view in the mouth. And what I do is I rock it in the mouth. I try and push the denture down, and where it's holding off, I can identify that and adjust it. So if you look at this, my head cam view here, there's some little marks here that have rubbed off where it's been in Angela's mouth. And I then use the burr just to smooth that down and just take away those edges. And then I take that back to the mouth and repeat it until the denture is fitting perfectly, fully down. But I avoid touching this area where it touches against the tooth to avoid creating a gap. So once I've got that nicely seated, I then want to have a look at the occlusion. So this is some Miller's forceps with some occlusion paper in the front there, and I get the patient to bite together, and I make sure that the collets here are not jacking the patient open. I want to try and get tooth to tooth contact with the partial dentures, the immediate partial dentures in place. So I'm using a rugby ball shaped diamond burr, which is great for that. And these are the immediate dentures fitted. And because I've used that occlude and carefully, been really careful not to touch the collets when I'm adjusting, I can get this lovely fit on the denture. So here we have the immediate dentures fitted. So we're now in a stable position for moving forward for Angela, and we can now plan the definitive denture, the metal-based denture. And I use a Scandinavian design system that I learned from Charlotte Stilwell, who's from Copenhagen. And it's a terrific way of making partial dentures, which are much healthier to the periodontium. We're keeping all of the design away from the gums of the teeth. We're just avoiding crossing the gingival margin. So where we've got the missing teeth, we can sweep the metalwork into that area. We've got a lovely big palatal plate there we're using the palate as support, keeping it away from the anterior position there. I like to use just 2 clasps per denture. And also here, because we've got these old bridge abutments here that didn't look very nice, and Angela wanted them replacing, I'm going to replace those with porcelain bonded to zirconia crowns, which are going to have milled surfaces to actually allow the denture to fit beautifully. And also in the upper, we've got subtractive rest seats as well. Subtractive rest seats on the canines. We're going to just drill in a little bit just to get a nice fitting denture there. Let's have a look at the lower denture design now. So this is my definitive denture design. So we've got this beautifully extended over the retromolar pad here. We have a sublingual bar that is the major connector connecting both sides. And in the lower, I like to use additive rests. So on the canines here, both 3s, we've got additive rests, which are going to allow the denture to fit beautifully there too. So I've not brought the dental bar further forward because these anterior teeth, both the upper and lower anterior teeth, are in great condition. I think it's highly unlikely that Angela's going to lose those teeth in the future, so I don't need to add to the denture with that. However, where we've got the premolars, where we're going to have crowns, we may need to add to that in the future. So we've added a nice rest onto the canines there, so we can add another tooth on to the denture in the future, should it be necessary. So let's move forward now to, whilst we're in this healing phase, when the patient's I can then remove these existing bridge abutments here and just gently re-prepare the teeth. I don't like to do a lot of preparation because I want to preserve the vitality of these teeth underneath. Taking a silicone impression of the preparations at this point, and when I've done doing the crown preps here, I take a bite record in ICP with these upper and lower teeth just touching together, just in the normal intercuspal position. And the wax rim at the back here, there, I squirt in Futar D bite registration material in between the teeth. So now it's moving forward. It's about my lab communication. So my prosthetic technician works with me in the practice itself, but my ceramist works away from me, works down the road. So I like to give him plenty of information about what I'm wanting, filling in the lab form, letting him have the design sheet for the partial denture. And also I send over some teeth as well that are Shotlander Enigma Life teeth, which are really superb denture teeth that I like to use, and I want my ceramist to match the colour of the final of the artificial teeth, of the Enigma Life teeth. I like to really give them loads and loads of information. I send it via email to them. But also another really great thing that I'm using at the moment is this Loom video, which is a software package which you can use, and I can communicate really clearly by doing a little video of my screen for the technician. So this is me. This is what I said to my technician here about this case. Just on the inside, a nice mesial shoulder, which will allow confluence, as in allow a rest, a lovely wing back in to fit onto the canine. So the metalwork will extend from there all the way out. So we've got a lovely shoulder, please. Shoulder with a very small rest seat here. So just coming up to a lovely little rest seat on that. So I talk it through the whole thing to the technician about what I want each of these single crowns to be like. So these are the actual crowns that Scott made for me. They've got these milled guiding surfaces and little ledges on, just to allow the partial denture to fit beautifully in the mouth. And these also match the superb Enigma Life teeth that we have for the partial denture itself. So I fitted these with Fuji Plus cement. And, you know, if you look really closely, we've got these lovely guide surfaces, a little ledge, really subtle rest seats on these here. And so got a beautiful crown here and here, which are going to match my final dentures beautifully. So now I've got the crowns fitted, I want to do my working impression for the chrome frameworks, for the metal frameworks. And I really want to be really conscious about where the metalwork's going to sit, and make sure that the metalwork, in this particular case, in this patient's case, I want the denture to fit into her existing intercuspal position, so the dentures don't prop the bite. Her bite position is just the same. So I mark up where the bite is, and then I'll prep just underneath these areas here where I want my rest seat to go really carefully. And then I want to get all this detail in my working impression. So I'm using the special tray that I originally made, put some green stick on, get that border molded beautifully, and then do a really careful working impression where I've rubbed in all the alginate into the biting surfaces of these teeth here. And I've border molded that edge here where we've got this flange position for the denture there. Now in the lower, this is Angela's mouth here, I've placed two little composite rest seats, one on the canine here and one on the canine here. These are going to be allowing the denture to rest against the tooth there. Now these additive rest seats are fantastic, particularly in the lower, where I just add composites to the inside, and that allows the chrome framework to sit over the composite rest seat there and prevent the denture from distalizing and pushing down. And then I do my working impression in alginate I've used green stick to start off with border molding, and then my lovely medium mix of Dentsply Blueprint cream mix there, and getting the patient to really work that tongue to keep any of the denture componentry. I just don't want any of the denture componentry being interfered with in the mouth. So the next phase of making the final dentures is doing the try-ins, and I like to do them with a Duralay pattern, which mimics the metal framework here. So I can try this in the mouth. I can assess that this is fitting really nicely. It gives me a good, if this fits well, it bodes well for the chrome fitting well. I can also show the patient and say, look, where you can see this red, this is where metal is going to be showing. And Angela really wanted very little metal to show. She wanted no one to know that she had dentures in place. This is really, really important to her. She's very aesthetically aware. So these are the duralay patterns, and I love doing them because I can assess and really see what the whole denture is going to look like. I can assess the occlusion. We can assess the smile, see what's going to be showing when she smiles. And also at this stage, I like to do photos of the patient doing a big cheesy grin, and also to do a video just to see and just to make sure the patient is happy. They can have a look at the video and have a look at these still photos. And Angela gave the thumbs up for this. It was brilliant. So next we move on to trying in the chrome framework. And this is the chrome framework we've got here. You can see it's beautifully made and avoiding the gingival margins. This is the lower one with the lovely sublingual bar. We've got a ring rest at the back here and 2 gold clasps on the premolars there. We're keeping everything away from the gingival margins. And this is all part of this Scandinavian approach, where this is the area that we want to avoid where the tooth emerges from the gum. We want to allow the saliva and to be washing over these teeth. And also the patient can actually use TPs with these when they're in place. So I try them in, and I do the same system using for trying in the chrome frameworks as fitting the immediate. So I like to use occlude spray and just spot grind until it sits perfectly. Same with the lower, spot grind. And what I'm looking for when I'm doing the chrome trying is I want to make sure that the bite's spot on, and that in this case, for Angela, I wanted her not to be propped open on the chrome framework. I wanted her natural teeth just to meet together perfectly. So once I was happy with that, Rowan then finishes the denture. So these are the Mark II dentures. The final denture's finished. You can see these beautiful clasps here. We've got a lovely clasp at the top here, which sits in the distal of this tooth at the top here. It's tucked out of the way. And we've got our lower one with the gold clasp here. We can be more extensive with this lower gold clasp because it's not on show. Looking at this is very much all about the Scandinavian design approach, which is keeping everything away from the gingival margins on these teeth. Lovely major connector there, which is offering superb support to this denture too. Looking at the lower here, we've got that beautiful sublingual bar just here running over, and this is our support running forward, this definitive denture. Now, if Angela had lower teeth with dubious prognosis, what I like to do is just bring this dental bar all the way around the front there, because what this allows is addition to the denture in the future, just like this. So we can weld a little tag onto the denture and add on to that. And it's future-proof for these patients. We didn't need to do that for Angela, though, for these anterior teeth. So here's our Mark II denture fitted. And the same applies when I'm fitting these dentures at the end as doing the chrome trying. I use occlude spray on the fitting surface to get the whole thing to seat properly, do some spot grinding until it sits down perfectly. And I want to check that the occlusion's not jacked open on that too. This is the lower here with our lovely ring rest on that back tooth there, and it's well supported. It's a bit like a table. We've got support from all aspects, table legs on the denture there. So here's our fitted Mark II denture. And Angela had some tooth whitening done and we matched the posterior teeth to the whitened teeth. And you can see how these are the Shotlander Enigma Life teeth, matching beautifully the porcelain bonded to zirconia milled crowns here. Also, what I like to do is, just if we've got a single tooth, this is an artificial tooth, Pontic there, I like to do that without any gum work. It just looks better with no artificial gum work on that. So here we've got Angela's finished case, and she was really delighted with that. And there's none of the clasps on show. That little gold clasp just tucked away, even when she does a cheesy smile. And she just lives up the road from me, and I bump into her regularly, and she was absolutely, totally over the moon with this. And this is a great thing about doing working in removable pros. We can really change a patient's life with their teeth, and she was just delighted with that. And when I finish the case, I like to do an end of treatment letter for the patient. They can really see what we've done, and it's also great for my referring colleagues as well, to show them exactly what we've done as well. I'd really like to thank Shotlander as well for supporting this presentation with me, and also I want to direct you towards the Ultimate Dental Supplies. Go to their online part of this presentation of the World Dental Conference. Please go to them, because they are the Australian stockists of these teeth, and they are absolutely superb. I've been using them for years as well. So thank you very, very much for listening to me today. And I just want to just set a little call to action regarding dentures. Hopefully, after listening to this presentation, I'd like you to think about them differently, regard them as being useful tools, potentially do them differently as well. And I'd love you to join me tomorrow for when I do my lecture on complete dentures at 10:55 Eastern Australian time. Thank you very much indeed. And I'm very happy to take questions now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Finlay. That was absolutely fantastic. And from all the comments, all the comments are so positive, you would imagine what a good feedback you had. We've got a couple of questions here. The first one is there an alternative to using occlude spray? Would I be able to use pressure indicating paste instead? And that's from Jay Wu.
That's great. Thanks, Jay. Actually, the occlude is superb because it's a powder. So it's not as, you actually get a more accurate, where it's holding off on the tooth, it's more accurate. You can see it more clearly on the fitting surface. So I can just take my burr to it. If we use, say, pressure indicator paste, it tends to smear in that area. So it's just not quite as good. So I would highly recommend occlude for doing that. It is a little bit tricky to remove. So how I do that is I use some liquid soap, like fairy liquid, for instance, and a toothbrush, and just brush that right into to get the occlude off. And also a steam cleaner, just a cheap one from Amazon is what I use, just to spray off the occlude as well. So thank you for that question.
Second is, what are the advantages and indications of using gold clasps? And that's by Dr. Shanti Krishnan.
That's great. I love gold clasps, particularly anteriorly, because they're not as obvious in terms of, from an aesthetic perspective, compared to silver. So if we have a chrome clasp or a stainless steel clasp, they're quite noticeable right at the front of the mouth. Whereas the gold just is a little bit more subtle. It tends to blend in. The other thing that I really love about gold is that they're dead easy to tighten to adjust. So, and particularly compared to chrome, they adjust really, really easily. So during the life of the denture, I can just tweak them in if necessary very easily too. Also, I do find that stainless steel works as well as gold, and also is as easy to adjust too. So from an expense perspective, stainless steel is cheaper and works just as well, but it's not quite as aesthetically nice.
Another question is, in what circumstances do you use the bite of habituation, and in what circumstances do you alter the bite? And that's from Andrew Karansky.
Okay, I alter the bite. Well, the bites, I have three set principles really. So in the case that I showed, I restored Angela to her existing bite position because she has enough of her natural teeth occluding together, touching. So when the patient's got plenty of natural teeth, I generally restore them to intercuspal position. If there are limited numbers of teeth, and if the patient doesn't have a bite, for instance, they're missing teeth and not touching each other, and there's no reference position, no intercuspal position, then I'll go for centric relation in these patients. And that generally I record that centric relation using a Gothic arch tracing system. So, but then we've also got thirdly, in some patients, if I'm doing a lot of backings on the palatal aspect of the upper anterior teeth and we're replacing posterior teeth, I'll often be opening the bite on those backings. And in those cases, I restore them to centric relation. But in order to open the patient up there on the backings, the reason that I'm doing that quite often is that the upper anterior teeth may be mobile. And so we've got mobile anterior teeth. And I find that if we've got a nice dental bar running around the back of them, it helps to splint them and it avoids the forces on these upper anterior teeth or lower anterior teeth if it was down there. So it's three things. It's either ICP, CR, or I open the bites onto the and give them a completely new bite at an increased vertical dimension.
The question is, would you consider a digital approach to any stage of such a treatment plan, such as you presented? And that's from Paul Gleason. So
actually, no, I'm a little bit of a, I love analog with and just doing it in terms of, doing my try-ins and doing, just taking the patient through almost like traditional stages of partial denture design. I think we're just not quite there yet in terms of recording soft tissues and reflections of sulcuses for scanning them out. It will definitely come in without a doubt, and as soon as I can do a scan that's as good as a border molded impression, then I'll be doing that, taking that on. So at the moment there aren't any aspects that I do, but I do see potentially for scanning small immediate dentures with very mobile teeth. I think that's potentially a really good idea. If we're worried about extracting teeth with the impression, if we're doing an immediate denture. So I think it's definitely watch this space, but we're not quite as far on with digital yet. I have actually tried some laser sintered chrome frameworks, but I've not found them fit as well as the traditional approach just at the moment for me personally. And I don't have quite as much control over the design of them either.
Would you consider using PVS or polyether impression material for secondary impressions?
Yeah, I think I think impression materials are very much dependent upon what you like to use. So if I've always loved alginate, and I've worked with that for so many years that I find that I get great results with alginate, and it's really accurate for my chromes as well. It's lovely. But if you like PVS, if you get good results with PVS, then that's really, really good. The new alginates, though, are really quite dimensionally stable if they're looked after. So if they're wrapped up in a damp gauze and sealed in a bag and then transported to the lab carefully, so they're not knocked about, they actually are really good. But PVS is great. It's a really good material as well.
There's another comment that the rests, and I assume that probably means the clasps, have no reciprocation. Do the teeth drift? And that's by Dr. Robert Harper.
So actually they do, all of them have reciprocation on them. So we've got both where the if you looked at the where the clasp touches a tooth, there is a reciprocating element behind the tooth on all of those areas. So there's absolutely no movement at all of the teeth at all. They're just, the teeth are beautifully splintered in place and don't move. So so there is actually reciprocation.
Yes, I gathered there was. All right, well, that's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Finlay. And we can't tell you how appreciative we all are. Thank you.